Hello, and thank you for joining us on Ominira TV. My name is Zainab Sanni, and this is Development Issues. In Nigeria, we have at least 13 million children out of school. In Oyo State, the number is 400,000 out-of-school children, making Oyo State the state with the highest number of out-of-school children in southwest Nigeria. Well, a young girl aged 15, Fathia Olomide, decided to do something about this and stage a campaign walk for out-of-school children in Nigeria, especially here in Ibadan, Oyo State. Thank you for joining us on Ominira TV, Fathia Olomide.
Thank you very much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Okay, so of all the issues to be concerned about, why did you choose out-of-school children?
Because education is very important. Every child deserves to be educated, no matter how little. Even if it's just secondary school education, at least get educated. An educated mind is a liberated mind. Yes, some people may argue, okay, we get educated and then there are no jobs, but still, even when the jobs come, they only come to educated people, not those that don't go to school at all. So the work was just to sensitize parents or students on the importance of education in their lives. It's a very important thing because an educated mind is a liberated mind. And also, while searching, I realized by July 2019, according to Mr. Adam, Minister of Education, there were 16 million out-of-school children in Nigeria, and also 400,000 in Oyo State, making it the highest in the of southwest Nigeria. Charity, they say, begins at home, so I decided to start from my state, stage a walk to sensitize the parents and students on the importance of education.
And how was the walk? What was it like, putting together the walk? What was the response like? How has been feedback since you organized the walk?
The turnout was very massive. We kicked off at Idiarere in Ibadan, because that's like where the most population of out-of-school children are in Ibadan. So that's why we kicked off. We stopped at Ojalba. It was just a work to complement government efforts on issues like education in the states. Governor Shey Makinde is doing a very great job. He's scrapped the 1,000 naira school fees. They're already giving them free notebooks and textbooks. There's even an intervention program during the last holidays for students that wanted to write the WASC and JAMB examinations. It was free of charge for them. The government is doing a very great job, and it was just to complement its effort on education in the state.
Okay, I like that you mentioned government, because I also gathered that your NGO, you have a non-profit. Yes. We are still coming to that. Your non-profit had some sort of interaction. I mean, yes. That is you particularly, had some sort of interaction with governments on education. How did this come about, and what was the feedback like from,
Okay, yes, it was during the 100 days interview done for him at the BCOS, Basharin Ibadan. So I was given the opportunity as part of the panel that interviewed him. And so I asked him a question about what his government was doing to curb this menace in the states. It's very disheartening that we are the highest in the of southwest Nigeria. He responded positively and said they were making good efforts, and they also need to sensitize the parents and the children on the importance of education. And actually, the efforts are very obvious. We're doing a very great job on that aspect in the States.
Okay, now let's come back to your NGO. Yes. The future is now.
Our future
is now. Tell me about it. What was the motivation for you to start? And how has the journey been like in the past 1 year?
I actually started last year, September.
Okay.
So it's just how to develop, to build and develop professional leadership and moral skills in teenagers. They're at a very crucial stage of their life, and this is where they need the monitoring the most. So the first program we had was like a summit where we invited various professionals from different fields to come and educate these children. I had the chairman of the Nigerian Bar Association of Ibadan branch, the chief medical director of Adeyo Teaching Hospital, Dr. Mrs. Ademola Remo of University of Ibadan. Also had one-year personalities like Mr. Abdugani Abdurazak, Mr. Giari, Mrs. Bimbola Olowo of Fresh FM. So it was just for students between SS1 and SS3. So the speakers were just here to come and educate them, make them know education is just the best legacy. And not just education, so also the moral aspect of it. So yes, it was just my own way of contributing to the society. We all want a better Nigeria, a better society for us all to live in. But we can't just sit down here, fold our hands and expect to fall from heaven. We have to work towards it. So that's my little efforts of, bringing Nigeria forward.
What would you like to say to everybody out there, especially children who are out of school, assuming they can hear us, or parents whose children are currently not in school for one reason or the other?
You should be made to understand the importance of education in a child's life. An educated mind is really a liberated mind. So you must do everything, even if it means going into debt just to send your child to school. Do it. It's really important. It's very, very important for them to go to school. And also we should try to like make our own little effort to grow this country, to make this country grow. We all can't sit down and expect man to fall from heaven and Nigeria should just move forward all of a sudden. It starts steps by step. So take even every little efforts, even rich individuals in the society can just pick up children from this side to send them to school.
Yes.
That's a very good effort too. Any little effort just to move this country forward must be taken. It's very important. Yes,
Thank you so much for joining us on Ominira TV.
Thank you for
Fathia
having
Olomide. Like Fathia Olomide, there are several others, including non-profits, private organizations, and individuals doing all they can to address the menace of out-of-school children in Nigeria. Why does it seem as though all of these efforts are not yielding results? Joining me to address these issues and prefer solutions now is Edem Ossai, a public policy expert, an Obama Foundation scholar, and someone who has done so much in the area of education in Nigeria. Thank you for joining us on Ominira TV, Edem Ossai.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, so I'll just, hang on to my intro. Some time ago, it was 10 million children out of school. At the point, they were saying 13 million, there was confusion. And now I'm even hearing about 16 million. And just 2 hours ago in the news, it was said that UK aid is about to inject 170 million pounds into education in Nigeria. Why does it seem like all of this effort, collectively with what organizations like yours are doing to address the issue of out-of-school children, why does it seem as though it's like a water, in an ocean, like a drop in an ocean, it's not yielding any results?
So thank you for raising, that question. It's a very important issue because we're facing a huge crisis. Like you said, the numbers are rising. While the statistics are unclear, and we rely on estimates coming in from multilateral organizations such as UNESCO, I think anyone who lives in this environment, who visits this environment, will be very fully aware that there's a huge surge in the number of children who are not enrolled in schools. We see them on the streets, we see them by the roadside. The numbers of street children and hawkers are drastically increasing. They are all around our neighborhoods and our communities. So I think that clearly establishes the fact that over the past half decade, there's been an alarming increase in the number of children who are out of school.
Absolutely.
Why does it seem as if, you said it doesn't seem as though efforts are yielding results? I think one of the things we have to bear in mind is the rapid population surge also happening across Africa and in Nigeria. Nigeria is not spared. Population and demographic experts will tell us that of course, again, we're relying on estimates, and people argue, these are not exact, numbers. We've not done a census. But you're looking at a population that over the last decade moved from about 160 million to over 200 plus million, projected to even increase to over 250 million by the year 2030. So it's surging, it's growing. This has implications for every development gap. So everywhere where there's a challenge, the indices, the indicators are that the numbers are going to continue to swell. Education is not spared.
I absolutely get what you're saying. So it's a question of population control, and in relation to education.
That's just one factor.
Yeah, then the fact that government is not seeming to understand that this is a crisis, and drastic measures need to be put in place to stem it.
Yes.
Put it on
So
hold.
I mean that's just one factor. Population growth, remember I said, will reflect every problem already existing. So there are many sociocultural factors that affect out of school phenomena. There are many gender factors that have a role to play. There are many economic factors that also play a role in whether children are sent to school or not. Now, when all these factors are at interplay and then the numbers are growing, you're going to have, that's why I'm saying population is, for me, the sort of overarching, change that affects every other issue. So poverty plays a huge role. Culture plays a huge role. We still have parts of this country that don't believe that it's important or significant for a child to go through the 4 walls of a formal education.
Wow.
There are many parts, and that's why even when you look at Nigeria holistically, you have disparities across the regions in terms of these out-of-school proportions. So the northern part of this country, in terms of the numbers of out-of-school children, is disproportionate to what you find in the southwest and maybe the eastern parts of the country. That suggests that there are certain attitudes, there are certain cultural factors that are interplay there that are quite different when you move downwards, to the other, regions in the country. Economic factors play a huge role, especially when you're looking at this from a gender lens. So for instance, a society that has, son preference, they prefer the male child to the female child. Cultural factors, allow for the introduction of, double standards or gender disparities, and gender will invest more in male children. That will affect, the opportunities that are given to the girl child. When a family is poor, that means that even those limited resources are now being shortchanged even further against the girl child. So these factors will of course affect. That's why you find that in the ratio of children who are out of school, over 60% are female. Because this tells you that there are other, gender factors that are also working, religious factors that are also working. So there are multiple factors. It's not a single,
it's like a whole bunch of issues
that
need to be tackled at the same time.
But what I'm saying is that the factor that affects them all is the overwhelming increase in population. So when you have all these other existing challenges, and then you now have a growth in the number of people in the country, then you will see that whether it's cultural factor that is the reason for denying a child an education, whether it's gender factor, whether it's economic factor or poverty, then the populations of these children who are excluded from formal education will be swelling in their ranks by virtue of the interplay of these factors.
All right, let's move away from that for now and come back to budgetary allocation. UNESCO, that's the United Nations Education recommends 25%.
Yeah.
Some people have come out to say that 25% is too much. I mean, I know they'll say that even though Nigeria doesn't do more, up to 10% sometimes, that 25% is too much. What would you say to that? Is 25% too much to allocate? They even say it's not realistic. Would you agree that it's not realistic to allocate 25% of a nation's budget to education?
Well, I mean, for me, especially because I function in the space of education, I believe that whatever a country is trying to achieve, whether it's in macroeconomic growth, whether it's in innovation and science and inventions, or whatever your indices or indicators for growth are, at the end of the day, the bottom line is how educated is the individual to drive that kind of growth. So education plays a huge role in all the GDP ambitions or aspirations of a country. So the challenge is that, you see, the people who govern are politicians. You enter into governance through politics, and politics is tenured, it's on a tenure. So politics is galvanized by political economy and its own factors. The man who is sitting in an office for 4 years, who will have to make a decision of how to allocate resources, is looking for the best ways to allocate resources that will guarantee him a re-election. He's not therefore likely, he's more moved by what are the things that will generate popularity in the public domain. So he's likely to make those investments that are more tangible, that are easy to see. And education is a long-term investment. Education, if you invest in it, you're making investments that yield into the future. If the child is born today and I begin to educate him, give or take, by the time he completes basic, according to the UBE standards, universal basic education, he must do at least 12 years before you can even say then he's eligible for vocational and skills. The point is, the person in politics doesn't have 12 years to wait for the outcome of his investment. He wants to see things that he can use to sway the electorate. So that already distorts the priorities. But at the end of the day, a country that is very forward-looking and long-term in planning has to understand that the basic, the real place, the real, arena for growth is education. So that's where I see that the model is skewed, because the people who are responsible to make the decisions are short-term in thinking, and the gains of education come from long-term investment. So my priority as a politician may not necessarily be that long-term thing, because I won't be there to be celebrated when the gains begin to come in. Until you convert politicians from politicians to statesmen, to people who are really invested in the development of a state, in the outcomes of a state, that's when you will find these kinds of investments going into education. In Africa and the settings where we find ourselves in, our politics is still too perverse to be focused on those long-term
goals. I like that you
goals.
brought it home to Nigeria, the kind of parallel between politicians and public policy experts and all the rest. Because I know you're in public policy, you're into advocacy and all the rest. Now, what would you recommend that we do to balance the equation, so to speak? I mean, if I'm a politician, I want to get elected, and I would not ultimately be biased towards making policies that will get me re-elected, as against making policies that would be beneficial in the long term.
run. Yeah.
How do we balance that? And also consider many people who are public policy experts and not even politicians or in government, so to speak.
More often than not. So I think we are in the worst of times and in the best of times.
Okay.
And I say that because we're in the worst of times because all the deficits in terms of the right investments, the right kinds of planning, the right kind of policy interventions that we have failed to do as a country are all being manifest today. So all the crises, from unemployment to the complete shamble and breakdown of our schools, to the inadequacies of our curriculum, to the breakdown in security and the, spate and rising spates of crime and conflict are a clear evidence of failures in the past to do the right things for building a nation. However, it also then now makes a priority for today's politician, certain interventions that must at least stem the bleeding. So there's no politician today who's not faced with an unemployment crisis because that unemployment crisis affects security. And the minute you have people running businesses and they can't move from location A to location B without being, threatened by armed bandits or without loss of life and property, then you find, that the public begins to hit at the political class to say, you're not doing enough. So that then affects your continuity as a politician. So the point is now, because of the failures, the huge long-term failures of the past, today's politician has to, be accountable for all of those failures. So this is the best of times to place a demand on today's politicians to ensure that, look, skills, for instance, every politician knows that it has to be the priority to make sure that the average youth has skills. Because the average youth today is unemployed. Our unemployment statistics are out of the roof. They're out of the ceiling. It's not sustainable because you have crime on your hand. You have, run away from the fact that your survival depends largely on what investment you're making in education.
Okay, now let's move a bit away from governance issues and come back to what you do. You founded a non-profit Mentors Association for Youths and Entrepreneurs Initiative, and one of your most talked about initiative or projects is the mobile library. What was the trigger for that project, and what do you think, what are those pertinent things that governments can, or anybody who's interested in making education better, can take away from that model?
So it's called Mentoring Assistance for Youth and Entrepreneurs Initiative, and like you said, one of our flagship projects was the mobile library, which in a way is a misleading term because it doesn't operate just as a mobile library. It started because we observed that public schools across Oyo State, and using them as a metaphor for the country, were lacking in several basic infrastructures that were essential to guaranteeing that a child who was coming in through those, into the schools were actually getting an education. I think we're putting children on two separate trajectories. Those who can afford the private schools are the ones that are still getting this modest kind of education. Those in the public schools are almost condemned, to have no skills whatsoever. So we started this as an intervention, taking it into public schools, taking it into communities that were largely low income. Okay. In terms of the profiles of the members. And these, with what we tag mobile libraries, were actually, resource centers. So they were learning hubs. We take them with a collection of books, so we move like a library. We also move with ICT infrastructure, so we move with a lot of ICT equipment, computers. To educate a child for the 21st century requires you to pass down digital skills. You have to equip them with knowledge of the tools that are prevailing in today's world. The prevalent tools are the computers. A child who says he has an education but comes into the world and cannot use the tool of today is not educated. Some of these children never even venture out of their community areas to see, main central business districts. They don't see, busy business areas with high, tall buildings with glass windows. You would think that this is 17th century Nigeria I'm describing. No, it's 21st century Nigeria. It's Oyo State, it's Ibadan, a city capital, a state capital.
And sometimes this area are just behind
business districts. We call them fringe communities, so there are all these peri-urban communities. They are the fringes, but they are in urban areas. So it's not until a child is in a rural community or a village before you find out that they're heavily disadvantaged. So we're taking a lot of these things and we're trying to, expand the horizons of the children. Bring them to have encounters with successful people, because if you put models in front of children, then you shape their aspirations. They have things that they want to be like, people they want to be like, something that shatters their, their mindset about their limitations, especially when these are people who also come from poverty. So we're doing a lot of these things and we're recording fantastic results inspiring the children. We started with 17, users in our mobile library and grew to over 100 children at some point coming on a given Saturday. They would trek from, neighboring distances just to come to the mobile library to use the resources that were available. Now, you talked about what is the model that can be replicated. I believe that, for instance, every community has to have a resource center that is dedicated to young people, to children and young people, especially poor communities. It's very crucial because these are the places that will serve as a cushion for whatever is lacking in their schools and in their homes. So poor communities need resource centers that can serve as counterculture places where children can come and have a completely different experience from what they are used to. It's important, and this is not something that we should just see and admire when we see people in other climes and in other countries. It's critical for us as Nigerians. And for people who have minimal resources, philanthropists who come from the community, people who have done politics and amassed certain wealth or whatever it is, because we know that politics is one of the easiest ways by which you amass certain wealth. Reinvest these into some of these kinds of models, into setting up community centers that are active, that serve as information centers, that serve as e-resource centers that can empower children in those communities with digital skills, that has a calendar where children can come for training. You train a batch over a period of 5-10 weeks, you train the next batch, making sure that they're armed with requisite skills for today's world. And you guide them on the ethics of using the internet so that they don't go and begin to go into cybercrime and going into other corridors of the internet that expose them to, nefarious activities or scrupulous activities.
When young ones from communities like that are exposed to the internet, especially the boys, the likelihood is that their first contact is cybercrime.
Because they have access to entertainment. One of the easiest ways, or one of the most proliferated spaces is entertainment. Regardless of whether you're rich or poor, entertainment will reach you. So now the icons in entertainment will reach you, and the messages from the entertainment sector will influence you. And what's coming out of the entertainment, because art mirrors society. Now the entertainment sector is mirroring all the frustrations in the society. Now most of the people who are singing in popular culture today are despising, education. The Malian culture is saying to hell with education. I'm not going to graduate. It's saying question authority. It's a reflection of all the frustration and the bitterness with governance structures that only enable a few and completely disadvantage the majority. So it's a reflection of the complete breakdown of trust. But it's becoming self-destructive because any society that puts forward for itself a model that says we don't need to learn to advance is a self-destructive model. Because that kind of approach to education does not reflect that you are aware that now you have 13 million plus who are out of school. That those who are getting education, the World UNESCO is telling you that 60% of your high school graduates, that's your secondary school graduates, have low literacy and almost zero numeracy skills. So even those who are going into formal education don't have skills to come out and function in the world. So those kinds of things tell me that what should your priorities be? One, you have to find a way, you must devise a way to say, instead of asking children to come to you, you have to find a way to go to children where they are. For me, I believe that we must reimagine systems of education. Secondly, when you hear that the children you are graduating, those who are coming out of secondary schools, those who are coming out of tertiary institutions, and the workplace and industry is telling you that they're not equipped with the skills to function in industry, we're having to reinvest so much money to retrain them, to make them even work ready. That tells you that what you're doing there is inadequate for the world today. You have to revise your curriculum. And then the African Union Commission for Education has laid down a complete new set of parameters and guidelines. And if we simply adapt, every Minister of Education, from federal to state, needs to adapt and adopt those new protocols for what should be contained in our curriculum. You have to teach children how to be entrepreneurial. And I'm not saying you must teach children to become entrepreneurs. It's very different. Entrepreneurial means that you have to teach a child to take theories, to take available resources, and to come up with solutions, to be able to critically think, to work in teams, to collaborate, to use ideas that you learned in the classroom to solve existing challenges in a way that is, you use a business model in a way that is sustainable, that somebody will be willing to pay for the value that you are introducing to the society. So that means that the system must readapt itself, even in terms of how it's delivering the classroom training and the learning outcomes we seek.
All right, perhaps the most important thing you have said for me today is that we need to reimagine our learning systems and education model, and that for me is very, very important. Thank you so much, Edem Ossai. It's always a pleasure speaking to you, and thank you for joining us on Ominerat TV this month.
It's been my pleasure. All the best.
And that is it on development issues this month. Be sure to join me again next month for yet another exciting edition. My name is Zainab Sanni.